Women around the world have found the secret to a perfect body. Injecting the fat of a dead man into their skin. And then we take a look at the story of a haunted campground. A story so chilling, you'll soil yourself. That might be overselling it, it's just kind of spooky. And then finally we take a look at the story of psychic investigators currently investigating the Epstein files. Are these people just having disturbing thoughts, or are they actually getting closer and closer to the disturbing truth? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys had an awesome week. And I gotta say, I apologize for last week. I did get sick. I got a pretty bad case of the stomach flu. So we didn't have an episode come out on Thursday and then nothing. I need to figure out a better system for that because I didn't post it on Twitter. I didn't post anything in the Discord or the Patreon or the YouTube comments because there's so many places to post. I just don't post at all. And the problem is that, first off, it's rude of me to do that. Secondly, you guys won't be able to tell if I am simply sick and haven't put out an episode or if I died. I mean, I guess after the third week of no posting, you go, I guess he finally died of some voodoo curse. But yeah, I gotta get better at that. So we have that episode. I actually have an episode that will air tomorrow. But I'm just letting you know, I probably referenced the upcoming weekend several times in that episode. If you're like, what? It's because it was actually recorded for Thursday's episode. Also, fair warning, I saw Mortal Kombat 2 again just last night at the movie theater. So I will probably segue multiple times into Mortal Kombat mythology, my favorite fighters, Baraka and Kung Lao. And then I'll try to stay on task, which if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know is already hard. And when I've actually distracted myself twice now by an awesome film, we'll try to stay on task. But someone who never stays on task, someone who loves doing random things, even if it is at the sake of his own safety. Weird intro. I don't know him that well. It could be spot on. Maybe he's the safest guy in the world. Running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for Cole from the Mule Crew. Woohoo, yeah! Cole's running in, knocking stuff over, being as unsafe as possible. Cole is a member of the Mule Crew, along with his compadres Eric and Liam. The Mule Crew came out to see me speak live at the Oregon Ghost Conference, and it's been a treat. They've been out a couple times now. Really, really appreciate it. Cole, that is why you are going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. He's like, I get the Epstein episode? Oh, I'm sorry, man. Someone had to do it. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store, it's totally fine. It really is. If you guys can't attend the live events, it's totally fine. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, we got a lot of stuff to cover today. So, Cole, I'm going to go ahead. Let's start off with, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dune Buggy. Everyone climb aboard our desert vehicle as we leave behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command, and Cole drives us out all the way to an underground medical facility. Cole's driving us out to this underground medical facility. Everyone get your lab coats ready. We put them on, we put on our glasses, and we walk into this secret facility. We see a bunch of scientists and doctors walking around and stuff carrying beakers, and they're like, Eureka, we finally discovered the secret to beauty. And they're all like super excited, right? They're like, finally we'll be beautiful too. We'll no longer just be dorks living underground. Everyone's running around, they're super excited because yes, they will become beautiful now, but also beauty means money. You can make a lot of money selling a beauty product. A quick segue, right? You're like, damn it, Jason. You look at your watch. No. I can't believe I haven't talked about this before. Maybe I did and I edited it out. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends the television show The Beauty. Have you guys watched that on Hulu? The first season's over with. It's a fantastic sci-fi horror drama. It's about a beauty product. It's this sci-fi television show. It's very reminiscent to me of the X-Files in a way, because it has these two FBI investigators trying to figure out why beautiful people are all of a sudden exploding. It's really good. You watch the first episode and you're like, what is this? And it only gets better and better episode by episode. It's based on a comic book. So that gives me hope because the comic book is done. The story is done. They have a clear ending. They're not just kind of making it up as they go along, which, nowadays television just falls apart in the last season. But anyways, as far as the first season goes, Dead Rabbit Radio highly recommends the beauty. It's pretty explicit, though. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends the beauty. Anyway, so back to the segment that I'm doing here. This is no magical potion that's been invented in real life. It's not like the beauty itself, which can make you explode. It's not super magical. People die constantly from using it, but this here, in a way, is almost more disgusting. You're going to be revulsed by this, and then let me explain it, and you might go, oh, okay, that's not so gross, and then I will make it gross again at the ending. Basically, what's going on, in layman's terms, is very recently, like in the past 14 years, and there are new products hitting the market, there has been the opportunity for women, you want a bigger boobs. You want bigger boobs. You want like a BBL, which I thought was big, beautiful lips. That's not what it means. It means a Brazilian butt lift. That shows how out of the sector, that shows how much of the plastic sector industry I don't pay attention to. I was like, big, beautiful lips? Who doesn't want those? A Brazilian butt lift. Let's say, ladies, you want a firmer, bigger butt. Let's say you want some bigger boobs, or just the normal size boobs you have now, but firmer. And then there's something called hip dips. I had never heard of this either. Apparently there's something wrong if your hips are wider than your waist or something like that. I was looking at photographs of it. I was doing quite the research on that. I was like, hold my calls, Jamie. I'm going to look at pictures of hip dips for the next 3 hours. Apparently it's something that is bad. I don't know. I looked at it and I go, what? I always thought who was singing that song? The booty's so big you can see it from the front. Who's that? It's not Nicki Minaj, Doja Cat. I thought that was a good thing, that if your hips were bigger than your waist. But anyways, apparently it's not. You're supposed to have this shot up inside of you to fix that. There's these products that have been made, and in short, it is injecting human fat into your body. And you go, Jason, that's actually been around for a while. What happens is you're already a little thick in the thighs, but you want bigger boobs, and the doctor goes, okay, we can remove fat from your thigh and then put it into your boob, and voila! Your boobs are bigger, your thighs are smaller. It takes a lot of recovery time, though. You're basically having 2 major procedures done. You go, Jason, people have been doing that for years. Yes, but this new thing is a fat from another person. And not just any other person. The fat from a corpse. And that's when we see in this underground medical facility, we thought it was just them running around with beakers. We go through a door and it's just row after row after row of bloating corpses. It's like 78 degrees in the room. They're like, yeah, we probably should run the AC a little bit more, but it's just bloating corpses as far as the eye can see on these tables. And these doctors are carrying around these huge needles and they're just sucking the fat out of these bloated bodies. It's a little safer how they do it in real life. I'm just doing this to be gross. They're spilling the fat. The doctors are slipping on it. Uh-oh. This is this procedure now. They're taking the fat from a dead man or woman. They're injecting the fat of dead men into humans, living people, to give them these procedures. And you're like, that's disgusting. You imagine just all that yellow. You're sitting down, eat some macaroni and cheese right now. That's exactly what it looks like. Human fat looks just like your macaroni and cheese. You're like, even the bacon bits, especially the bacon bits. They're taking this fat out, this greasy, slimy human fat. There's just a bloated corpse laying next to you in the plastic surgery center. And the doctor's like, hey, hold on for a second. Sucks it out of the dude and then walks over to you with a giant needle. In a sense, what they're doing is injecting dead men's fat. In reality, there are these 2 different companies. You have Like, please don't say our names. You totally have misrepresented what we do. I'm going to say your names, and then I'll explain what you guys do. There was a product back in 2011 created called Renuva from MTF Biologics. Recently, Tiger Aesthetics has released a product called Aloe Clay. And they go, listen, yes, we are taking the fat out of dead bodies. These are people who have donated their organs and their tissues after death. We'll get to that in a second because this has become controversial. You donate your body after death. It used to be that they'd take your eyes, take your heart, take your lungs, take whatever they could, take skin. And these companies go, we used to just throw the fat away. And they look side to side. That's not true. They took it home. They filled pillows full of it. They had a big fat pillow fight, splattering everywhere. I wonder what human fat smells like after, like a week or two. Anyways, please don't mail me a box. They're like, oh, I know how Jason can figure out that mystery. Mail him a box of human fat. They say, we used to just throw the fat away. Well, what happens is now they figured out a way to process it. And they go, we are not injecting raw human fat into living people. That's not what we're doing. We're taking this fat and we're stripping it of all genetics. They go, we remove the protein, we remove the DNA, we remove the RNA. All that's left is the raw material of human fat. It's been processed. It's been cleaned, Jason. It does not look like macaroni and cheese. It does not make a sound effect like as it goes into a human body. We purify it and we use it, and they go, it works. It's fantastic what it can do to reshape the human body. Because, and there's different types, right? There are these two different companies. There's a third one coming to market. They do different things. But, they both firm the butt, firm the boobs, make them bigger and stuff like that, fix the hip dips. But the way that they work, Aloe Clay, the newest one, it basically becomes your fat. It's like the building blocks of human fat. It works a lot quicker than Renuva. And these procedures, they go, you can come and get a boob job in 30 minutes. And we're not putting you under. It's not this huge procedure. You can get bigger boobs on your lunch break. But I did see that you can only go up half a cup size, which doesn't sound super impressive. Jason, they're not trying to get double E's. They're just trying to firm up their boobs. She's in her 50s. She wants her body back. She had before kids. She just wants to get a little firmer. Well, yeah, and you can do it on your lunch break. You could also probably get the Brazilian butt lift done as well. But you might have a hard time sitting after that. You're sitting on dead man's fat. In essence, yes, it is just the building blocks of dead man's fat. But dead man's fat nonetheless. People are saying that now this makes them less likely to be an organ donor. There are several articles where that was either the slant of the article or they were interviewing people that were saying as such. They go, when I said I was going to be an organ donor, I thought like my corneas was going to go to some blind kid and my heart was going to help some war hero survive. My kidney was going to go to this grandma in Alabama who's like has 15 grandkids or whatever. I didn't know. I didn't understand that my human fat was going to be used to make this woman more beautiful. It feels a little tacky. It feels a little wrong. Now, I get where they're coming from. I don't agree with that sentiment. You're dead anyways. What's the big deal? You can take whatever you want. Build a slip and slide out of my skin. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But other people are saying that makes them less likely to be an organ donor. Some states in the United States have certain carve-outs when you become an organ donor. It'll say, because what happens is this is considered tissue. It'll say organ and tissue donor. Some states, I guess, will have carve-outs saying, you only want your body going to a non-profit corporation. So it wouldn't go to a for-profit company. And people go, oh, okay, well, now I feel better about knowing my body might benefit some after my death because it'll always be going to non-profit. Well, apparently MTF is a non-profit organization, so they would still get your human fat. One person in an article said, I don't feel comfortable knowing that while my organs may go to help someone, some of me may be used for a penile implant. Will it make a big impact? Will enough people stop being organ donors because they don't want their fat being... I would think, that would be a positive for me, right? I'm like, ladies, look at how beautiful you are because of me. I'm all sitting there, I'm all eating. I'm 600 pounds. I was like, ladies of the world, feast on my fat. I will be nothing but boobs and butts as far as the eye can see. Well, see, that's the other thing. Like, I understand people not wanting to donate organs. I think it's kind of, I don't want to say it's silly, but you don't get to pick and choose where your body goes when you die. Anyways, right? You can have it in your will, you want to be buried, and they just push you off the side of a boat. That's just kind of the way that it is. You should be an organ donor. I promote being an organ donor, tissue donor. If your skin, maybe your skin's used because some dock worker got caught in a fire saving a shipload of kittens, or maybe you're being used for a skin graft because some meth head blew up his house for the 19th time. You're a skin graft. You don't get to choose where you go. You just can't choose. This is honestly my argument against it. It's not really an argument, but this was my thought, I guess. I have no problem with donating my organs. I have no problem with donating my human fat to make women more beautiful. I don't have problems with donating my human fat to give a guy a bigger schlong. We did an episode about this a long time ago, and I do actually believe this is a thing. It's, I forgot the exact term for it, but it's where just genetic memory, cellular memory. There's stories of people who have donated their heart to somebody else, and the donor recipient takes on the quality traits of the original owner. And it could be all sorts of things, from someone who was a vegetarian gets a new liver from a guy who ate normal food, and the person's no longer a vegetarian. They're an omnivore, if not a carnivore. Now they're hunting, they're running on all fours. Oh, I got the liver of the mighty wolf. But you know what I mean? Like, well, I'll put the episode in the show notes. I've always found this a very fascinating thing. People who die and then their organs are transferred, and then the recipient takes on the traits of the original owner. There was even that horrifying story about the guy who killed himself, and he had his heart donated to someone else, and then that person ended up killing themselves the same way shortly afterwards. And I wonder if you can strip the genetic material, the fat, as much as you want, but what about the metaphysical material? Will that remain? You can't test for it. You can't remove it. Would it do anything? Would it change the person in any way? So are there moral issues? Are there metaphysical issues involved that you can't test for? That would be my thing. As a paranormal guy, that's kind of my thing. So fascinating story, and I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think about it. Does this make you not want to be an organ donor now? Would you guys willingly have dead man's fat injected inside of you? And would it be me? Would you want my fat? Gentlemen, I heard that my fat can give you some girth and some length. Would you want some Jason fat injected into your body? Right? Listen, the way I phrased it, I wouldn't even want that. That sounds pretty disgusting. But would you be willing to do this? It's funny because it is for vanity. It does seem a little more morally dubious, but metaphysically, I wonder if you will see this transfer of personality from one person to the other, from the deceased to the living. Interesting stuff. Cole, let's go ahead and keep this ball rolling, this big ball of fat. We're rolling out of the underground facility. It's all ours now, guys. We get to sell it by the pound. Cole, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the car. We haven't done this one in a while. Cole, I'm going to go ahead and toss you a steam shovel. Everyone climb on board the Carpenter caboose as Cole chugs us out of this underground facility all the way out to Florida. Chugga 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 choo choo. All the way out to Florida. Specifically, we're headed to Astor, Florida, and even more specific than that, I thought this place was made up, but apparently it is a real place. We're headed to Gobbler Road in Florida. Gobbler Road. It's not that funny. It's not that weird of a name. I don't know. It's kind of weird. In fact, some people local, they don't call it Gobbler Road. They call it Gobble Road. So you decide what's goofier. We're headed out to Gobble Road. We're about to meet an old friend. Longtime listeners of Dead Rabbit Radio should know that I got this story from a website we haven't visited in years. Backpackerverse. But for new listeners, Backpackerverse is a website dedicated to backpacking and hiking. But they also do a bunch of ghost stories. Which, you can kind of see the synergy there. Walking out in the woods, a spooky ghost jumping out to see you, it would be notable. I'm sure a lot of backpackers have stories involving ghosts. Backpackerverse, though, has a history of just making stuff up. And I'll put all the previous episodes in the show notes. We covered it a lot back in the day. It brings a smile to my face every time I think of Backpackerverse, because they just make up stuff. And you go, so Jason, you're going to waste our time with a made-up story? Well, let's go ahead and take a listen. Before I answer that question, let's take a listen to this one. In Astor, Florida, there's a place called Gobbler Road. And we're specifically on Gobbler Road. We're headed to the Gobbler Road campsites. This is where a lot of people pull up their RVs, get out, stretch, breathe in that fresh Florida swamp breeze. All that stagnant water going right up into their nostrils. The smell of decay. Welcome to Florida. We're about to meet a young man. His name is Dominic. That's his real name. At least according to Backpackerverse. They make up ghosts. I don't know why they wouldn't just make up names. But anyways, Dominic said, I'm an outdoorsy guy. He loves the outdoors. Every weekend he likes to go out and sit in the woods. It's bizarre, I agree. It is super weird. You go out and sit on your front porch. You don't have to make a big production about it. Just sit on your front porch, and if you really want to, pull a sleeping bag out and sleep in your front porch. You don't have to buy a bunch of stuff and then drive miles and miles and miles and do the same thing you could do on your front porch. And maybe you don't have a front porch. Maybe you live in an apartment complex that sleep under a bridge like everyone else. I hate camping myself. I kind of think it's weird. But even if you didn't, there's a lot of people who do stuff that I don't find particularly interesting. I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I'm not a camp cop. Well, anyways, Dominic likes to go camping. He started dating this new girlfriend named Morgan. And she's not super outdoorsy. She's not against it. And he goes, well, I'm really wanting to keep this relationship going, but I love doing the outdoors thing. I want to take this girl camping. However, I don't want to scare her away with, pitching the tent and hunting for fish or whatever you do when you're camping. Just sit there. Just kind of sit there silently for 8 to 12 hours. He said, you know what? I decided to bring my SUV and we were going to do some of that car camping. Kind of ease her into it. And he knew that the Gobbler Road campsites would be a good place to do this. So he goes, hey, Morgan, this weekend, how about for a sweet date, me and you hop in the SUV and we go camping? But, we just sleep in the car. We don't have to worry about bugs or boogeymen or anything like that. She's like, the boogeyman? I never thought about that when I was camping. He's like, oh, okay, not the boogeyman at all. But he goes, let's do it. And she goes, yeah, fine. So he says they drove out to Gobbler Road campsites in his SUV, and everything's going pretty good. Just kind of hanging out, sitting there, talking, or probably doing stuff. And then it becomes nighttime, and he goes, we made some pasta. They had a little fire going, little campfire, outside of the SUV, of course. He set up a campfire, and they made some pasta. And he goes, we also made some s'mores. And then it got a little chilly out, so we closed up the SUV, and he was snuggling with his honey in the back of the SUV, and he tells us that they had sex in the back of his car. And then he made a very peculiar statement. He said, quote, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I fell asleep almost immediately afterwards. I don't understand why people are embarrassed by that. I fall asleep all the time right after sex. Why stay up? It's kind of ridiculous. What do you expect me to do? We just had sex. Now what? Now you want to get out of bed and go watch a movie or something? I don't understand that. Now you're like, Jason, from the tone of your voice, you're taking this a little personal. I've had many complaints over the years about it, honestly. Many complaints. Many a woman has said, and then you just fall asleep. And I go, but what else happens now? The movie is over. The credits have rolled. What do? You leave the movie theater. And I'm leaving consciousness by going to sleep. They call it a climax for a reason. There's nothing after that. Well, mine, at least. I mean, sure, listen, lady. You might need to keep up. You might need to keep up the pace a bit. Oh, it didn't happen for you? Oh, sorry. I was too busy catching some Z's. But the point is that, yeah, I've heard that over the years. Women have constantly said that to me. And they go, well, you do fall asleep right after sex. And I've always go, and? Everybody does. Everybody does. Why are you complaining about me? Why did I get this petition with 1,000 signatures saying to stop doing it? Because every guy does it. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. In fact, I'm quite proud of the fact. I'm announcing it on my podcast that's heard around the world. Play this part extra loud. Rewind it and play it on the loudspeakers at work. I, Jason Carpenter, have no problem about falling asleep after sex. It's ridiculous that anybody has a problem with it. You're like, Jason, first off, it's kind of rude. You should at least pretend. You should oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Yeah, it was just a long day at work. You should at least pay some lip service to it at least. No. I draw a line here. You have the right to complain, right? You can say, hey, Jason, wake up. I mean, listen, if I was falling asleep during sex, which has happened, but if I was regularly falling asleep during sex, fine, yes, probably need to go to a sleep specialist or a heart doctor or something like that. The few times that it's happened, I was just really tired, and she didn't know, luckily. You're like, what? How was she not aware? I'm all snoring. I was like, oh no, that's the way I show that you're extra sexy. I breathe through my nose, and you can see my eyes moving quickly underneath my eyelids. It's quite pleasurable, honey, that you're doing that to me. No other woman could. It's ridiculous. Stop. Guys, stop being embarrassed by it. I'm not embarrassed by it, and neither should you. It's ridiculous that it's even an issue. Anyways. You're like, Jason, I would have rather you've talked about Mortal Kombat than all of that. Dominic, though, is asleep, and about 2 hours pass, he says. He's asleep for about 2 hours when all of a sudden Morgan starts shaking him. Dominic, wake up. Wake up, Dominic. And he's like, huh, what? What's going on? And she goes, there's someone outside. There's someone outside the car. And Dominic's like, what? I mean, imagine like how freaky that would be. You're deep asleep and now you think there's someone outside the car. She says there's someone outside the car, so he immediately grabs a golf club out of the back of his SUV and gets out and starts walking around looking for someone, because you're thinking it's like a peeping Tom or something like that. But he doesn't see anybody. So he goes back to the SUV and he goes, hey, Morgan, I'm sure that you saw something, but... Dominic gets back in the car and he goes, Morgan, there's nobody out there. I didn't see anyone. Morgan says, I didn't see anyone either, but I heard them. There was someone knocking on the glass. Dominic's like, that's actually kind of creepier. It's not some pervert, which would already be pretty creepy, but it's a knocker. Like, no, Jason, perverts are way creepier. Every time someone knocks on my door, I'm like, ah! No, like, think about it. What's creepier? A man leering in at you watching you while you sleep? Okay, you're right. Pervert would be creepier. But anyways, she just heard someone knocking. He didn't see anything. So he just kind of goes, I don't know what that was, Morgan, but there's no one out there. Oh, let's go to sleep. So they both go to sleep. He says he actually waited for her to fall asleep, because she was nervous, and he's trying to make camping a fun thing for her, right? Well, anyway, she falls asleep, and he goes, I was up for a little bit longer than I fell asleep, and I probably slept for maybe an hour or two, when all of a sudden I heard a... He described it as a faint gasping sound. So maybe it's more like this. What's a gasp? Yeah, that's a gasp. So it was more like the second one. He pops his head up, right? He doesn't want to wake up Morgan. because he doesn't want to scare her, but it's possible that a pervert or perverts are back outside of the SUV. He looks, and that's when he sees a ghost child standing outside of the car. And he said the breathing sounded like a little kid, and now he's seeing a little ghost boy outside the window. And it looks like this little ghost boy is gasping for breath. But he can't get one. He desperately wants air in his lungs, but it is not working. And that's when he sees the boy begin to knock on the window. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. And then the boy vanishes. Dominic never told Morgan what he saw standing outside the SUV, because he thought it would scare her from ever going camping again, which fair, right? That's fair. But there's no origin of this little boy. We don't know if this boy died in the area, which would probably be a pretty good guess. Maybe he was camping there with his family 30 years ago, and he was sucking the meat off a chicken bone, and it went down his windpipe, and he died. Maybe he drowned. There's a lot of things that can kill you that have you gasping for air. But you go, Jason, this is from Backpackerverse. It might not be real at all. Why did you tell us this story? Was it just because you wanted to go on that diatribe about sleeping after sex? No. I wanted to tell the story for two reasons. One, I thought it was interesting. This area actually is haunted. If you look this area up, you may see it referred to as Gobble Road or Turkey Drive, which actually, now that I think about it, makes sense where the gobble comes from. It wasn't that famous landowner, Jacob Gobble. It was probably there's a lot of turkeys in the area. They're so close to each other. Gobble Road is real. There really is a RV campsite out there, a kind of a drive-in campsite. And there are reports of a glowing white male, a glowing white man walking down the street. So it actually is a real haunted area. There's no other reports of this boy, this ghost boy. It does seem to appear and leave pretty quickly. It's also possible that other people aren't hearing it. If they're in a larger RV, maybe the ghost boy can't reach the window. Maybe there's no way for him to be knocking. Maybe he's outside in the darkness gasping for air, and nobody hears him because an RV is bigger. You go, Jason, yeah, possible. Or maybe it's just that Backpackerverse made the whole story up, because we have caught them multiple times making stuff up. I did think it was interesting, though, that this place is actually haunted. Also, some reports are of a glowing white man, and some reports are of a glowing white man walking a dog. And reportedly, someone in the area said I had seen the glowing white man walking the dog, and then a few years later, my stepfather was doing some land clearing in that area and found a headstone or a grave marker for a dog that had died, and it said like the dog's name and how long he lived, and some comments about the dog as well. And it's possible that this was the grave marker for this phantom dog. The man probably long outlived the dog. Actually, that's kind of obvious. Who else would leave the gravestone? Interesting, right? Backpackerverse, they do make a lot of stuff up. Is this story made up? Has a high probability of it, but it was interesting that there are ghostly sightings in this area nonetheless. You go, Jason, why did you cover this? You know Backpackerverse makes stuff up. Well, here's why. One, it was a funny story. Listen, Jason, it was about a kid choking to death. I'm all, And next, for my next fun trip, I'm going to go hang out at a children's hospital. Barrel of laughs. No, I don't know. Here's the thing. This is the thing. Go to Backpackerverse now. It is a ghost, no pun intended, of its former self. All the photographs are gone. All the artwork, the spooky artwork they've had for their website, the links are all destroyed. Navigating the site, you get a bunch of ads popping up. And I was there the other night because I was just looking around, right? I go, I wonder what Backpackerverse is up to. So many of the sources that we used for this show early on, they're gone now. A lot of the websites that I used to go to no longer exist or barely hanging on. Alien, I used to cover a lot of stuff from them. They haven't updated in months, almost a year at this point. And I think their last update was just a repost. Backpackerverse is on the way out. A couple of the big true crime sites I used to go to, they're no longer in operation. I was thinking about that story about I think his name was Askier, the guy who hid in his crush's closet, and he was going to tie her up and then leave, and then the real him was going to come in and say, "Oh, I'll rescue you." There's this weird scheme that he had. I got that from True Crime Stories. You know, a lot of the sites that I got stuff from, they're gone now, and it's kind of sad that this show has outlasted, and I'm not bragging, but so many of the sites that we enjoyed going over the years, they're leaving. Even some of the podcasts and YouTube channels that were my contemporaries either no longer put out content or no longer put out content that's related to the paranormal or put out content so infrequently, you know, maybe 3 times a year. It's weird to be walking among the graveyard of once vibrant websites and communities. Phantoms and Monsters, you know, they did a big site update, and pretty much any link to any article from Phantoms and Monsters up until previous to January of this year, they're gone. All the links are dead in the show notes for all those really cool stories we covered on Phantoms and Monsters. They're still around, but they do, they have a lot of AI articles, which I just can't read. They're just written in a format that just you can pick up on it immediately. I'm hoping Phantoms and Monsters does a course correction, because they still have a lot of good original stuff that's not AI. I think their stories are real, but I think they're using AI to type them up, and they're unreadable for me. Just really interesting and kind of sad that a lot of these sites that we, meaning the show, grew up with are now no longer there. It's kind of depressing to see that Backpackerverse has one foot in the grave. Kind of weird. So that's why I wanted to go. Story, you're like, it's kind of depressing. Yes, bring on the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. It'll clearly be more uplifting than that. It's just sad because I loved going to these sites and we got a lot of great content from them, but, you know, multiple reasons they're just not in operation or they're on their way out. Cool, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're saying goodbye to Backpackerverse, but hopefully we'll be back one more time in the future. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Psychic City? We're flying all the way out to Psychic City. I gotta be totally honest with you guys, though. I just recorded all of this whole Jeffrey Epstein segment, and it was depressing. You're like, obviously, Jason, did you think it was going to be hilarious? No, I didn't think it was going to be hilarious, but it was just a little too dour. It was a little too depressing, and I'll probably release it in the future as like a bonus, because I thought it was good, but it was just too depressing. But I do want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. I want to talk about psychics, so you're going to make it more entertaining? Yeah, basically. I'm going to make circus noises in the background. No, sometimes you have to do a first take to kind of knock the dust out. We're going to go here for take 2, just in all honesty. We're walking around Psychic City. There's a big crystal ball in the center of town, and everyone's wearing a big robe. Entire place smells like patchouli and sage. But we're here to see King Psychic. And okay, now I'm probably making it too entertaining. Let's just cut all the preamble, and let's just get with the story. Anyways, here's my thing. I found this subreddit, the Psychic subreddit, and they were recently discussing if any psychics were looking into the Epstein files. It's a really interesting question, actually. Now, I do think some psychics are fake. I think they're just making it up. You get those people in all walks of life. I'm sure there are doctors who make up stuff as well. Like, no, Jason, that's a false equivalency. There's way more fake psychics than doctors being like, I think you have knee allergies. I think that's why both of your legs exploded. It's because they were allergic to the rest of your body, not the landmine that you walked on. Yeah, okay, so maybe there are probably doctors who don't fake it, but okay, whatever, it's a bad analogy, let's I have to realize sometimes when I've dug myself into a hole. What I'm saying is that some psychics are real, some psychics are fake. That's just how I feel about it. I definitely don't believe every psychic. And I think that translates to this subreddit. Some psychics said, yes, I've peered beyond the veil. I've seen the worst crimes imaginable. They're horrible, horrible, I tell you. But give us some details. Not because I'm a sicko, but you may have seen something that is actionable. But a lot of people just goes, no, it's too horrible, I can't even write it down. Probably is, I'll agree with you on that fact. But you should say something. Case in point, one person said, oh, I saw... Listen, I don't mean to keep taking that tone with the Epstein files, but a psychic goes, I saw what happened with that dentist chair, that famous dentist chair. It has been photographed, the photograph's been in the mainstream media. This dentist chair, but I can't talk about what I saw there. It was worse than you could ever imagine. Well, someone commented and go, no, you actually should tell us what you saw, because, and I didn't know any of this. Apparently this is pretty well known, but I didn't know about this. Jeffrey Epstein's dentist was his girlfriend, allegedly, his last girlfriend, and allegedly she also worked on the teeth of some of his victims. And she's free. Not only is she free, her name is Karnia Sholiak. Not only is she free, she's mentioned 45,000 times in the 3 million documents that have been released in the Epstein files. There's still another 3 million that have not been released. The last person he reportedly talked to on the phone was her. And you go, well, Jason, that doesn't make her complicit in anything. He named her in his will. So he gave Ghislaine Maxwell, his co-conspirator, $10 million in his will. He willed his girlfriend $100 million, as well as millions of dollars in diamonds. Also, his ranch in New Mexico, which investigators are looking to see if there are any bodies buried there. They have some tips of people who've been buried there. Not only that, he willed her Epstein Island itself. So if that's not like a contingency plan for the organization to continue after his death, I don't know what is. Allegedly, I don't know what that is. So that's a good point. If a psychic actually did view into the Epstein files and saw these horrible things, they were able to look at this photograph and see what happened there, and that same psychic saw this woman, does that mean the police are going to arrest this woman? No. But we do know, also from the Epstein files, they take 4chan posts surprisingly seriously. We did an episode on that. So even if a psychic could give a shred of something actionable, it may work its way up to the right people who could investigate it. So I don't believe you if you're a psychic and you say that you're seeing this horrible stuff, and then someone goes, no, actually, like, this person is still free, walking free today. And she might have had something to do with it. If you're specifically viewed the dentist chair, was this woman in the room, the psychic doesn't respond to that. I think it's probably fake. Other psychics were saying, kind of similar stuff. They saw horrible things. What I thought was interesting is you had some psychics say, be careful when you're looking into this stuff. Because what we've learned in the Epstein files is that he had an interest, at the very least, he had an interest in the law of attraction. Talks about Neville Goddard a lot, who was a big author in the law of attraction, the law of assumption. At the very least, that. And at the very most, a lot of belief and pursuing wisdom in the realm of mysticism. And, I mean, listen, if there is an Illuminati, Jeffrey Epstein probably wasn't a member of it officially. He was probably a hanger-on. It's very interesting when you look through the Epstein files, he was constantly begging for money. It seemed like his entire thing was accumulating wealth and then begging people for wealth. It's quite pathetic. What I've read of the Epstein files, he just seems like a loser, a pathetic loser. That's been my attitude towards Jeffrey Epstein. We've been covering him for years. I found his personal blog, and he posted all of his stuff. Nobody commented on his blog. Man, we've all had projects like that, and we put this product out, and no one ever responds to it, and it feels bad, and he's just a loser. He was a bum. He was a bum who had $100 million, sure, but still a bum, still a loser, still a pathetic man, a tiny little dead man at this point. But he did have a interest in mysticism. I have an episode coming up about him that actually really kind of gets my goat, but I'll save those details for later. It involves this, but he does have an interest in that. And if he is a hanger-on to the Illuminati, to the elite, I'm sure he rubbed shoulders with members of these secret societies, but he wasn't a member of one. If anything, he was a caddy. He was a fetch-it boy. He provided them with something that they wanted, but, he was never a member of the club. He would have access, though, to people who practiced the dark arts. And I think he wanted to have access to that himself, but he just wasn't smart enough or talented enough or gifted enough to be able to learn it, to be able to attain it. But that doesn't mean he wouldn't have people on his payroll who would be willing to do this. Psychics who would be standing guard to prevent his secrets from being remotely viewed during his life or even afterwards. It would be very dangerous, and this is kind of what people are saying online. If you're a rank and file psychic, if you're just someone who does it or is born with this gift, it would be the equivalent of someone who's a natural street fighter. They're pretty good in their local neighborhood, going up against a heavyweight boxer, a trained MMA combatant, a member of Delta Force, people who've honed their skills over decades of work. You may have some raw talent, you may be a psychic, and a lot of people can't do that, but you're going against someone who has weaponized their psychic ability, someone who is born with the same gift as you, but specializes in counter operations. Like I said, it's not safe. Technically could be, a psyop. Someone can say, don't look into this, because it's not safe for you. There's trained psychics on the other side who have no moral issues with scrambling your brain, giving you a stroke because you looked too much into this. I think some psychics are making it up. I think some psychics could actually see into the past of what had happened on Epstein's island or Epstein's ranch or Epstein's townhome in New York or wherever. But there are possibly psychic booby traps out there waiting for these psychics. I thought it was interesting. I've been really into Chilean mythology recently. We've covered a couple stories on the show. We're going to be covering more. I find it very fascinating. They have two types of shaman, the good shaman and the bad shaman. And the difference between the two is fascinating. Really fascinating stuff. The difference between the two, a bad shaman used to be a good shaman who became a little too interested in making money. Just a little. And you start to make bad decisions. You start to use your powers for your own gain. And then that completely changes the magic system you work under. It's really fascinating. It's not like you start out to do evil, and it's not like you're the greediest guy in your village. Just at a certain point, you become a little too interested in making money. You're not Scrooge McDuck. It's a little step. You don't even see it coming, and then you are now an evil shaman with a whole new different host of powers, a whole new different host of spiritual workers and aides working for you on the astral plane, and a completely different and twisted mindset, all because of just one small desire. Makes sense. And you'd have these evil psychics working for Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was interesting. Other people said, and this was interesting too, and it's a little bit harder to correct, but I think it's important, is that you use, whether or not you use your psychic powers to delve more into the Epstein files, or you just find yourself reading about them and thinking about them and doing all of that stuff, you got to be careful because there are entities that feed off of our negative energy. And it's funny, there's different levels to it. Some people call them energy vampires, psychic vampires. These tend to be humans that can feed off of the negative energy that we're putting out. And for a lot of people, the Epstein files was a massive red pill. To us conspiracy theorists, this is nothing new. We've covered Mark Dutroux. We've covered stories like this before, whether it was a local conspiracy that was doing this, or a national conspiracy, or a global conspiracy. Nothing was super surprising to me in the Epstein files. But if you didn't believe in any of that stuff, and we'll get to that in the ending here, It was quite the revelation, and it crushed a lot of people, and it continues to crush them. They just can't. You got to be careful. I mean, that is true. Let me finish that. So there are human energy vampires that'll feed off your negative energy. There are interdimensional entities that can feed off your negative energy. In that case, it's called loosh. Your negative energy is called loosh, and you have these entire life forms. That's what they feed upon to sustain themselves and also to give themselves joy and pleasure. They feed off of our fear. Archons is a name used for them. Also, solar plexus clown gliders. We've talked a lot about them as well. That is a type of archon that feeds off human misery. And then there's even the in-between. And, I'm a member of this group. This is what my degree was in. I'm a journalist. I got my degree in journalism. I'm obviously a member of the media, but let's call a spade a spade. The mainstream media also feeds off human misery. People do not read the newspaper day after day after day after day if it's nothing but good news. People would much rather watch the angry video game nerd make fun of a video game and talk about how bad it is than watch a 30-minute video of him talking about how great a video game is. Any movie reviewer will tell you their bad reviews always get more views than their good reviews. Same thing with video game reviews, same thing with the news in general. So the media feeds off negative emotions. They want you to be fearful, they want you to be angry, they want you to be sad, because that'll get you to read the newspaper again. It's quite odd. It's just part of human condition. They also feed off of misery. When you're investigating this stuff, you have to be careful you're not putting out too much of this negative energy. And it is hard, because this is real serious stuff. It's really tragic stuff towards the most vulnerable among us. But you have to do it in kind of a way that you're not feeding into this machine, whether it's a metaphysical machine of solar plexus clown gliders or just the mainstream machine that puts out bad news so we read bad news and then puts out more bad news and we read bad news and all of that. Or just the average energy vampire. Which is funny to use the word average in front of that. It's interesting, though. When I read all of this stuff, you had these different groups. You had the psychics that were saying stuff that that probably wasn't true. They just kind of wanted karma on Reddit, not actual karma. And, they were kind of being called out for it because they weren't given details. They're just making these vague statements. But then the idea of the evil psychics protecting Jeffrey Epstein, I believe that's true. And I do believe you have to be careful how much negative energy you put into the world. Does not mean don't read this stuff. It is important stuff. It does not mean don't think about it. It does not mean don't research it. But it does mean that you need to put protections in for yourself so you don't fall into the swamp of sadness. But I gotta say this. We'll wrap it up like this. I appreciate that this Epstein Files is a mainstream media story. I do. I think it's important. I appreciate that the psychics of the world are using their powers to peer into the Epstein Files. Even the fake ones, right? They can sit there and pretend and do all sorts of stuff. It's not real. You wonder then, are they just imagining horrible things and pretending that it's real? Who knows, right? Fakes are fake. I appreciate that the mainstream media is covering this. I appreciate that I can talk to my friends and neighbors about the Epstein Files, about the elite among us. Actually partaking in some of the most horrible things a human can do to another human. I appreciate the fact that when things happen in the world, people go, that's great, release the rest of the Epstein Files. That's a common comment I see around the internet. That's great. Where are the rest of the Epstein Files? They view everything as a distraction from the Epstein Files. And I think that is true for some of the events going on, for sure. This is my statement to the psychics and to all of the new citizens that now stand next to us who have realized that the world is not what they thought it was, that the powerful can and often will do despicable things for fun. This wasn't even to maintain power. This wasn't some sort of coup, secret thing behind the scenes. They were just doing it because they liked it. Welcome to the community. Welcome all of you. Where were you during Pizzagate? That's what kind of pisses me off about this whole thing. Where were you guys during Pizzagate? Oh, that's right. The same newspapers who are telling you everything in the Epstein Files are true wrote an article saying, don't even waste your time with Pizzagate. It's complete nonsense. And you sat there and you nodded your head and you ignored it. I would have loved to have an army of psychics looking into Pizzagate. And I posted that on this subreddit, in this forum when they were talking about this. I said, this is great and all. Where were you during Pizzagate? And no one's responded. They don't owe me a response. It's fine. But it's a legit question. Where were you during Pizzagate? It pisses me off. Now, I'm not saying every Pizzagate allegation is true. And honestly, I don't think every Epstein allegation is true. But I'm willing to look into both of them. And I have. Where were you guys? Oh, you're right. It's fake. None of that stuff was real. Because the mainstream media told you, so you didn't even waste your time pretending to be a psychic about it. It's utter nonsense. When you get down to brass tacks, there is nothing different in Pizzagate than is different in the Epstein files. The only difference is whose side it implicated. What side of the political aisle you're on. It's nonsense to take a side on a subject like this. And I'm glad there are a lot of people interested in the Epstein files, and I'm glad a lot of people are reading them. I am. Protect yourself, yes. Don't give up hope. Don't fall into despair when it just feels like you can't change anything. Because I saw that happen, right? We understood that this stuff's totally possible. I knew people who never thought any of this stuff would be possible. It was all an urban legend because they'd been told by the media that it was. And now they're looking at this stuff and it totally shook their worldview. But now that you know that this stuff happens, and I've asked people this, a good friend of mine who believes everything in the Epstein files, all of it, even the stuff that's not in the Epstein files, even the stuff that they think's in the Epstein files, they believe it. And I said, well, now that you've read all this stuff, are you thinking differently about Pizzagate? And they just kind of chuckled and go, well, Jason, I find it shocking. I really do, that you can have your eyes opened, but really just one of them. And just barely. Where was all of this outrage? Where is it now for Pizzagate? You could make so many comparisons between the two. And people go, no, that one's made up because the media told me that one was made up. Listen, if you want to delve into Pizzagate and give it a good weekend, read articles on it, read the emails, read articles saying this is why it happened, and read articles saying this is why we don't think it happened, and then you come to the conclusion that it's not real, that's totally fine. That's awesome. I'm not going to sit you down for another weekend and tell you why I think it's real. But people aren't even doing that. People aren't even doing that. And they've just been hit in the face with 3 million emails showing all this Epstein stuff, and they won't even do a surface level read of Pizzagate. It drives me... It doesn't drive me bonkers, it just puzzles me. I guess I said it pisses me off. I don't even know if that's true. That to anything is more of a red pill to me. Because it just shows that people have their political side. That's really what I think it comes down to. Pizzagate implicated the Democrats. Epstein implicated all sorts of politicians on both sides of the aisle, but it's mainly being used as a weapon towards Trump. And listen, Trump was in a lot of photographs with the guy. There's birthday letters. There's all sorts of weird notes. And I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to get political either, but I'm not going to sit here and go, all that stuff's... There's explanations for everything. But what I'm saying is that if you believe in the Epstein files, and I think that you should, right? Not all of it's real. There's some allegations in there that I don't think are legit. Like him saying Donald Trump gave Bill Clinton a blowjob, and that was going around for a while. And Jeffrey Epstein's brother goes, that was a joke. We made a joke. That we don't think that ever happened. Stuff like that, right? And not even looking at Pizzagate, I think it's kind of ridiculous. And psychics of the world, I'm glad you're looking into the Epstein files. Tell us this information. Maybe we can implicate some more people or get the word out about other things that are happening. Quit giving us these vague answers. But please, look into Pizzagate as well. Doesn't say you have to agree with me, because again, I don't believe every Pizzagate allegation either. But there's something there. I'm not saying Comet Ping Pong Pizza is the end-all be-all and it's the most horrible place in the world, but it's definitely a location that is mentioned, and it is odd that this pizza parlor's owner, James Alefantis, is considered one of the biggest power brokers in DC. So that's all I'm saying, guys. If you're going to investigate one, investigate the other, psychic or not. Go back. If you don't believe in Pizzagate at all, I'm telling you, give it a good weekend. Be open. Jason, you told people not to get despondent, and now you're saying, oh, read even worse stuff. It's all bad. You're right, maybe you're like, oh, my plans for the weekend, Memorial Day's coming up. I'm going to spend 3 days researching Pizzagate, just like Jason said. You know what I mean. Like, what I'm saying is quit picking sides. It's all terrible. And if you're going to hold one as this happened because the media told me, the same media that was lying to you this whole time, by the way, and telling you there was nothing in the Epstein files. Right? Now they're like, oh, we're going to publish the Epstein files. Go back and read those same articles that the same publications were putting out 6 years ago and being like, I don't know why Trump keeps talking about the Epstein files. There's nothing in the Epstein files. And now they're like, oh, the Epstein files are true. Go read what they wrote about Pizzagate and then go research it yourself. And have an open mind. I mean, it's not going to be fun, right? But when you have emails that were leaked from John Podesta's email during the election, and it was saying stuff like, who's coming to pizza party? Tell me what you want. People are saying, I'll have 7 to 9 slices. And someone else goes, I prefer 3 to 5 slices. Who orders pizza like that? Also, who eats 7 to 9 slices? What people think that is that's an age range. What they're saying is, I want someone who's 7 to 9 years old. When people are talking about the entertainment at a pool party and they list the names and ages of 3 kids of one of the attendees of the party and says, I don't remember the names or ages, but like Michelle 8, Sarah 7, and Billy 5 will be the entertainment. When that's an email what does that even mean? What does that mean? What does it mean? You know who could help us with that? A psychic. Where were you guys during Pizzagate? That is my question, and it's a question I will continue to have until some psychics start doing it. Just look into it. If you have the real ability and you have the mental power to withstand all of this horrible information, look into it, because I think they both deserve scrutiny. It's not just one side of sickos. That is such a kind of an infantile thought that only one side is corruptible. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com. Jason, that was trust me, that was a more uplifting version of the original. I'll probably release the original someday, because I think it's an interesting compare and contrast. Anyways, DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day. I'm so glad you listened to it today.